In the last 3 or 4 years, we've worked particularly closely with the Trust, aligning our research strategies and developing mechanisms for working more effectively together. This put us in a strong position when the call came out last year to bid for NIHR Biomedical Research Centres, and we went in with a very ambitious bid, pulling together some of our very best talent from the Trust and the university. I'm absolutely delighted that the bid was successful, as it will allow us to move forward with important translational research, which you'll hear more about later, but in the subjects of gastrointestinal disease and hepatology, hearing, mental health, musculoskeletal disease, respiratory medicine, and our cross-cutting theme of imaging.
So I'm going to spend the next half an hour or so telling you a little bit about why I think the Biomedical Research Centre is going to make a difference in Nottingham and indeed nationally and internationally. And I'm going to do that by telling you a little bit about the history of how we got to where we are. I'm going to actually tell you some scientific information about one of the large studies I've personally been involved with. And the reason I want to do that is that I think we stand at the beginning of an era where we can make some truly major progression in clinical translational research.
Nottingham hosted the world's first meeting on MRI in 1976. That's what used to be the Staff Club, now the Helmsley restaurant, and you're looking at the global effort in MRI at that time.
At 1,000 Gauss, the magnet is the largest of its type in the world. It's the brainchild of Dr. Peter Mansfield of Nottingham University, developed specifically to subject living material to intense magnetic forces. And the reason? A dramatic new way of seeing inside living matter without using X-rays.
But Cooksey also found some areas where there could be improvements. He found that there was insufficient industry engagement with the life sciences industry to really do take this forward. And what he was found that although we had good basic research, the translation of this basic research to develop new treatments and implement these into practice was also insufficient and not as good as it could be. And he identified 2 particular gaps in research translation. The first gap, the T1, which is around the translation of basic and clinical research into ideas and products. And he also defined the T2 gap, the second, relating to the introduction of those ideas and products into clinical practice.
What I've been asked to talk about is the Athena Swan Charter. And the Athena Swan Charter isn't new, although it may be new to some of us here today. So Athena Swan encourages institutions, departments and working groups, so not just universities, not just schools of medicine, but actually research groups as well, to look at their representation, to look at the career progression of their staff, and to look at their working environment.
Just to give you an explanation of who I am and why I think I can talk about impact, I'm a health psychologist by trade. I've been an applied researcher for about 13 years. I'm really looking at how we implement and develop interventions and those kind of things in the health domain. But I also became the university's impact officer for a number of years for a secondment, and did quite a lot of working with academics, working at how we could plan better impact, integrate impact into research projects. And that came with a whole host of challenges which we'll touch on today.
Patient insight, patient experience is going to be vital to how we solve the health and social care challenges we're facing now and in the future. And in some cases it's going to be impossible to do it with research alone. We have to use that insight and experience. And for us NIHR is about bringing those two things together.
So the rare lung disease I'm going to talk about is lymphangiomyomatosis. This is a multi-system disease that affects almost exclusively women. It starts around puberty and presents really up to the menopause. The disease is estrogen sensitive, we think, and it's a rare disease. It affects about 300 women in the UK.
I'm leading the BRC Mental Health and Technology team, but I also lead Mindtech, which is another NIHR infrastructure. It's a health technology cooperative, and a lot of our work links very closely to that. And the work on the AQUA trial also was hosted and based in the Clark, and Richard Morris will be talking later about the Clark. So again, another example of NIHR infrastructure in Nottingham.
Most of our patients present very late, and that's for cost to them individually, but it's also a cost to the health service with expensive interventions based on IT and so forth. And some very important work that came from the epidemiology group at Nottingham, led by Joe West, highlighted this, and the fact that 50% of patients who get their first diagnosis of cirrhosis get that after their index presentation to hospital, which is a staggering statistic.
So I wanted to start it off by showing you a slide, which is the cost of bringing a new drug to market. It's more than doubled in the last decade, and it's increased more than tenfold since the 1970s. You might ask, why am I showing you this? It's relevant because it's meant that the pharma industry has been forced to look at how they're doing drug development and how we are doing research.
I am the Director of Research for the NIHR Clark. NIHR Clark is a collaboration and is led by Nottinghamshire Healthcare Trust as the lead NHS organisation, but it's also a partnership between the universities of Nottingham and Leicester,